we're here to shed some light on the delightful world of Nestle. Everyone makes mistakes, right? Well, Nestle is more than just the naughty boy on the block. In fact, it has been tied up with several unethical practices, from contamination of products to even putting life of babies at risk. But they don't put that on the cereal box, right? Let's dive in. Nestle's darkest secrets and the disturbing truth that the company would sooner leave buried, which might just put you off your bowl of Cookie Crisp. Being able to naturally breastfeed a baby can be impossible for some mothers, with studies showing that it is better for a baby's development compared to a powdered formula. So, to try and intentionally lead and misdirect women to choose not to breastfeed for the purpose of selling their product would be pretty unethical, right? During a marketing campaign that stretched over several decades, the first big Nestle boycott started in 1977 as a response to their aggressive marketing of milk formulas being pushed in less economically developed countries. In these countries, formula samples were given to new mothers while still in the hospital. Even medical practitioners were pushing these samples as they were also paid for their involvement. By the time the milk formula samples had run out, the women's natural lactation process had been interrupted, which meant they had to rely on a milk substituted to feed their child. Of course, in these less developed countries, Nestle's variation was the only one that was most readily available. That is literally the drug dealer model of business. Try before you buy. To make things worse, the product's nutrition content was only stated in English, despite the countries it was sold in. This meant that the mothers had no idea what they were giving their newborn babies or how much they should be giving them. This meant that the mothers would have to rely on doctors and nurses to advise them, who often were unsure themselves. Several hygiene problems also arose, as mothers didn't know how to sterilize the bottles correctly, which led to life-threatening diarrhea. As there were limited medicines in deprived countries to combat these types of illnesses, many babies died. Many companies and babies still boycott Nestle baby formula to this day, especially the campaigns that claim that formula is better than breastfeeding, a claim that doesn't have enough evidence to back itself up. Similar to the plotline of Mad Max Fury Road, Nestle and the bad guy in the film have been compared, due to them both trying to hoard water so that they can make a profit. Yeah, this actually happened. Nestle mined water in several companies, and afterward, that water becomes the property of the company. This business plan is quite worrying, considering that we are seeing more and more water shortages around the world. With this subtle shifting of water classification, it'll make Nestle possession of water sources even easier. At the World Water Forum held in 2000, the ex-Nestle CEO, Peter Brabeck-Lebata, openly said that access to water should not be a public right. Nestle later argued that the comment was taken out of context, with the former CEO actually saying that it is a human right to have 5 liters for daily hydration and 25 liters for minimum hygiene, but the rest of the water people drink and use should be treated as a precious resource. Regardless, putting a paywall on the amount of water a person can use is a slippery slope. As with most things, inflation causes products to shrink for a higher price tag. Nestle taking water out of some U.S. states hasn't gone unnoticed in the last couple of years either. In fact, it is currently tied up in a scandal in Flint, Michigan, where the company is pumping out 747 liters of fresh water every minute out of the state's reserves. Now that's a lot of water. Nestle is also the largest private owner of water sources in the state, with the company being under fire since 2003, when a judge ordered the company to stop pumping out water as it was causing ecological damage. This hasn't fazed the company, however, with Nestle Water CEO Tim Brown saying that if he could bottle more of California's water for profit, he would. Ding ding, I think we have our next Bond villain. It's true that a lot of water is stupidly wasted, but not all people deserve to pay increased prices for water to a privatized company, just because of a few people who want a permanent water sprinkler on to keep them cool during the heat wave. Sadly, governments have a knack for ignoring environmental issues, which allows companies like Nestle to make a pretty penny from a resource that is the most basic of human rights. The number one rule of business is to look good. If it was to look unethical, that would definitely cut into the profit margins. And that doesn't bring in the big bucks. This is why it's important for Nestle to convince customers they care about them and that their practices try their very hardest to look after the environment. Unfortunately, it's far more cheaper to pollute land and water sources and just cover it up afterward. A prime example of this happened in October 2008, when they launched a new advertising campaign in Canada, which claimed that most water bottles avoid landfill sites and are recycled. Sadly, this wasn't true. Several environmental groups have filed complaints against Nestle concerned about their supposed recycling activities. According to a statement made by the Friends of the Earth group, a large number of the bottles never got recycled, instead ending up in sold waste dumps. All the cat lovers out there may be familiar with the Purina cat food brand, owned by Nestle. Sadly, it might bum you out to learn that the brand has been involved with slave labor in Thailand. You may be wondering how your cat's favorite meal could be one of Nestle's worst-kept secrets. Well, let me explain. Usually the workers for the Purina brand are immigrants brought in from Thailand's even poorer neighbors in Burma and Cambodia. For the privilege of getting a job, they are coaxed into illegal contracts that trap them into working for the industry to pay off the debt created by the contract. Yeah, you heard that right. They have to go into crippling debt in order to get a job, in order to make money to survive. Often workers are killed when they are pulled into the water by the huge fishing nets. Nestle launched their own investigation into the Thai fishing industry practices. The disturbing findings were made public and proved that the working conditions were terrible in Thailand, which is the world's third biggest seafood exporter. Nestle promised to take action to improve workers' conditions and to find more ethical ways of sourcing seafood ingredients. This, of course, was met with positive reviews from human rights groups. But it does beg the question, how did Nestle get tangled up in such a horrible abuse of human rights in the first place? Was it a simple oversight, or just one more example of the company brushing its dirty laundry under the carpet? According to some of Nestle's biggest critics, the chocolate production isn't a pretty affair, and it's littered with allegations of huge mistakes and mispractices. In September 2017, the environmental group Mighty Earth conducted an investigation that found industry practices in the Ivory Coast and Ghana that were resulting in mass deforestation. Also, large quantities of the beans used for the chocolate were illegally grown in protected regions in order to maximize production. These illegal cocoa beans were then sent to huge companies like Hershey, Mars, and of course, Nestle. Sadly, rainforests now make up less than 4% of the Ivory Coast landmass, with it being reported that it has lost an eye-watering 116,000 acres to the cocoa industry. In fact, 90% of some national parks have been converted for cocoa production, taking away much of the green space in the area. Combined with the popularity of poaching, this has caused extreme wildlife problems, which threaten the existence of certain species. For example, the elephant population has been reduced to less than 400 in the area. That is just shocking. Chimps are another animal that is paying the price for companies like Nestle and groups of poachers, who have also seen a devastating loss in numbers. Despite the fact coming to light, the unethical manufacture of chocolate still continues to this day, and at a scary rate too. It's believed that if it keeps happening, there will be no forest left in these countries by the year 2030, just 7 years. In late 2017, The Guardian newspaper in the UK asked big chocolate producers like Nestle and Mars for comment on the deforestation issue. Although the companies didn't deny the use of cocoa beans from areas with illegal deforestation, they did say that they were taking steps to eliminate these cocoa beans from their products. In the 70s, a military regime in Ethiopia forcibly seized all the assets of foreign companies, including Nestle. Since then, the company has attempted to receive compensation for its losses, which amassed a whopping $6 million. Nestle's campaign for compensation from the company continued right through Ethiopia's famine of 1984, which saw over 1 million people lose their life as a result. The financial battle continued right through to the 2002 famine, which saw a 3-year drought that took the lives of many. While Nestle was owed the $6 million, many people saw the pressure they were putting on an already suffering company as unethical, with 40,000 of them writing to the company begging for the matter to be resolved humanely. Nestle then said that it was a principle of the matter and not the money that was important, a statement that was met with a huge backlash. To save its reputation, the company settled for $1.5 million and promised to reinvest it back into the struggling country. Like I said before, it's all about public perception. In Canada in 2012, the Competition Bureau was ready to file charges in a chocolate price-fixing scandal after a 5-year investigation. It was alleged that former Nestle Canada CEO Robert Leonidas shared the company's pricing plans with competitors Hershey, Mars, and Cadbury, which did the same to illegally control the prices of the chocolate market. According to court papers issued by the Competition Bureau, it was alleged that rival executives all met up to share their future price lists. with the then CEO saying that he wanted his rivals to hear the prices from the top, as he took his prices seriously. Of course, he took it seriously as this was a way to maximize profits, especially if his rivals were also happy to increase prices to meet his. In 2015, the Public Prosecution Service of Canada dropped the charges against Nestle and its then CEO, Robert Leonidas. A Nestle spokesperson later released a statement saying that the company prided itself on operating under the highest ethical business standards and was pleased that the lawsuit had been dropped. Later in 2013, however, another lawsuit reared its head in Canada, which Nestle was keen to settle for $9 million over more claims of price fixing in the chocolate industry. Despite the settlement, Nestle claimed that they did nothing wrong. If that was the case, why did they pay up? Innocent people don't need to pay to make issues go away. I'm just saying. Now, deforestation and forced labor in the fishing industry is bad enough. But unfortunately, it gets worse. Nestle claimed that they stopped child labor practices 20 years ago. In truth, they are still happening to this day. Many of the world's chocolate companies have missed deadlines to abolish child labor from their cocoa supply chains in 2005, 2008, and 2010. The reason for this could be that they're struggling to manage the cocoa farms across seas, or simply don't want to affect their profit margins. In 2021, Nestle faced another target date, which, once again, they failed to complete. This means that the odds of a chocolate bar purchased in the U.S. was produced through the help of child labor. Now, that doesn't taste so sweet, does it? So, how many children are being forced to work in the chocolate industry? Well, according to a study in 2015, it's estimated that more than 2 million children work in hazardous conditions within the cocoa industry. In a 2020 study, it was determined that children as young as 8 were used to pick coffee beans for companies like Nespresso, another brand owned by Nestle. Like their adult counterparts, the children worked 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. To make the job more grueling, these little kids had to carry around sacks on their backs that could weigh upward of 100 pounds. For a grueling day at work, these children were paid around $8 for the entire day. This means they got paid less than the cost of 8 Nespresso pods. Back in 2008, all Chinese milk-based products came under fire when it was discovered that a broad range of companies, including Nestle, had put melamine in their products that were made in China. Now, melamine can easily be mistaken for protein when tested. This led to Chinese dairy manufacturers illegally claiming that their products had higher levels of protein, when in reality, they were just using cheap melamine. When it came to their baby formulas, when the protein amount is critical to a healthy child, these Nestle products led to many children getting severe protein deficiencies, when the mothers believed they were getting all the nutrients they needed to be healthy. The toxic contamination came to light after 16 babies were diagnosed with kidney stones. In this specific incident, all the babies had been given products from the Sanlu group, which led to Nestle being caught doing the same thing. Whoops. This led to Taiwan banning the sale of powdered milk and baby formula produced by Nestle in China. Nestle was quick to defend itself, but tests proved that melamine was definitely present in the products, a secret ingredient that was definitely not a tasty addition. Nestle eventually admitted that their products in China might contain a little bit of the toxic chemical and sent 20 Swiss specialists to develop better ways of detecting the pesky melamine. The mislabeling of products can sometimes be a genuine mistake, but oftentimes it can be done deliberately. This, of course, is not only unethical, but can also be incredibly dangerous. Back in 2002, the Administrative Department of Security ordered Nestle Colombia to destroy 200 tons of powdered milk, as it had been produced between August 2001 and February, but relabeled to claim it had been made between September 20th, 2002 and October 6, 2002. Reason? So that they could put a longer sell-by date on them so that they didn't have to throw away any of the large batches produced. Even the United States Nestle company was up to no good, with 10,000 packs of Häagen-Dazs distributed around the eastern U.S. being recalled in 2014. In this case, the ingredient list had failed to alert consumers that the ice cream contained peanuts, with peanuts being one of the most common and life-threatening allergies on the planet. That was a little detail that should have made it onto the tub. Nestle Poland spring water was met with scandal in 2017, when it turned out that the water also included common groundwater when it claimed to contain 100% natural spring water. In the lawsuit, the plaintiff claimed that the 8 sites that Nestle claimed to contain the spring water had never been proven to exist. They further added that if the sites did contain springs, then they would gush out and the public would be able to see them and know of their location. It does make you wonder how many other water companies claim to be from a natural spring source, when in reality, it's straight from the tap. Finally, in 2018, Nestle was once again under fire when it was met with a class action lawsuit regarding non-GMO labeling. The lawsuit was actually filed in Los Angeles and claimed that the company had no GMO ingredients, which stands for genetically modified organisms, on their packaging. Nestle was also accused of designing a logo on their products that made people think the products were non-profit and non-GMO, when in reality, this wasn't the case. In fact, the dairy cows were fed GMO grain, which was a direct violation of the non-profit standard. Once again, this was brushed under the mountain of carpet at the Nestle HQ, with the suit being settled in 2020, although the amount they paid is yet to be shared. Nestle is a prime example of how we can all be guilty of putting our trust in huge companies, expecting them to be well-behaved. In truth, these companies have gotten to where they are by learning shortcuts and ways to take advantage of the market. Techniques that are not always legal, ethical, and in some occasions can be life-threatening. So before you pick up your favorite chocolate bar, you may want to do a little bit of research to avoid supporting child labor, infant formula that risk the lives of babies, and forced labor. That chocolate won't seem so sweet after discovering that.